Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome into PTN Extra. I'm Evan Kamiko. That is Mike Irwin. Mike, you know it is a Wednesday when the two of us are up here talking about, unfortunately, another Arkansas loss. It feels like it's copy-paste at this point. Quickly, before we get into anything else, just your reaction from the loss from Memphis.
Oh, very surprising. Hard to explain. Hard to explain how bad the defense got as it got worse because, again, during the week before that game, it was we're working hard. We're going to solve the problems we had against Ole Miss, and it just got worse against a team that's not as good as Ole Miss. It was just hard to explain. Some of it may have been the heat there. That was the hottest game they'd played in, and maybe that explains going downhill toward the end. I just think Memphis was ready. I think they ambushed Arkansas. I think that was the biggest game of the year for them, and they game planned, and they had a good game plan. And Arkansas just kind of walked right into a trap.
What really stood out to me was we talked so much about the turnover battle, right? Like that to me is massive because Arkansas, yeah, you can say it was 3-2 in this game, but the reality is it was really 3-1. Arkansas, besides the Julian Neal interception, they got another one, but it was on the awful trick play that Memphis ran. And when you're running a trick play like that, yeah, you get the turnover, but it's like, okay, they gifted that to you. I don't count that as a forced turnover that Arkansas necessarily got. And again, the big thing was not losing the turnover battle the last 2 weeks. And it feels like in the Sam Pittman era, when they do not win the turnover battle, they lose the game. And whether that's one-score game or not, we see that way often than not. You go back to that Texas A&M game a couple years ago where they're on the pretty much goal line. All KJ Jefferson has to do is put the ball across. They turn the ball over. They lose the turnover battle. They lose the game to A&M. And then 2023, the wheels fall off pretty early on in the season because you're losing the turnover battle. Then right now, you're 500. And the good news is you are 500. It's so early in the season, but the bad news is you look ahead and it's so hard, the schedule, right? Like there is no give-me's anymore. The easiest team you can say that's left on the schedule is Mississippi State, and they're 4-0.
Yeah. Well, you got two things working against you right now. During the Sam Pittman years, Arkansas has fumbled more than anybody. I'm talking not SEC, I'm saying in the country. They've just fumbled, fumbled. I
believe like 113 times.
And so you ask yourself what's going on there. I've mentioned this before. I've watched them go through these drills early. You know, we don't see practice once the season starts. But you watch them go through these August drills, and they've got these foam things, and they're banging it against the guys he runs with the ball, receiver, running back. Seriously, a foam ball? I mean, to me, if you really want, you got to take a chance and risk somebody getting hurt. But to me, you get out there and you get in the face of a bunch of defensive guys, a bunch of offensive guys. I'd have a running back here or a receiver here. I'd have a defender here, and I would just go run into him, and they're just grabbing and trying to pull that ball out, and you got to hold on to it. And really grab for it and really have to hold on to it.
And to your point, that is the first actual drill that we saw in August, is that ball security drill where they're, beating the guys with the, oh God, we're just, it's PTN Extra, we're having fun. Everybody at home, don't think of anything that I just did. That was, that's pretty bad, but you get my point, right? Like they're hitting the guys with the sticks, kind of like maybe I'm doing like a lacrosse motion right here. But what's interesting to me is that when we see that in the defensive drills, they have defenders ripping the ball out of other defenders. Why are those not running backs there? Like, why is it not offense versus defense in that drill and defense on defense? I don't really get it, but it's clearly a problem, and it has been for the last couple of years.
Yeah, so you have that problem. And then the other problem you've got is a quarterback that has a history of throwing interceptions. And he didn't throw a lot in the first two games, and now in the last two games, he's throwing interceptions again. And why is he doing that? Because he's not getting time to throw the ball, especially in the second half, because that offensive line is not pass blocking, has been confused, hasn't handled the blitz as well, and that's caused Taylor Green problems. So you think Notre Dame hasn't watched this? You think they're not looking and going, hey, we can produce some fumbles here, we can get some interceptions? Let's just come at the quarterback and rattle him.
Need I remind you, too, the only reason Notre Dame has a losing record is because it lost to Miami, and then it lost another very good game of opponent that I am forgetting about. But they're not a bad – Notre Dame is not a bad team. They're still ranked 22nd in the country. It's just going to be a lot for Arkansas to overcome. Can they overcome these mistakes? Before we get into Notre Dame, before we talk about the Fighting Irish, I've got to ask you, there's been a lot of speculation this week, right? Like Saturday hits, that game's over. Fans obviously very upset, wanting to call for Sam Pittman's head, right? And now you see this subtly. Brendan Marcello reported a couple of days ago that Bobby Petrino was turning around and trying to work his way up and figure out a way that he can be the successor to Sam Pittman should Pittman get fired. And then that was quieted yesterday. Somebody came out and said that no, Coach Petrino hasn't said any of this on the buzz. It's completely false. Where are you on all of this when it comes to noise and crickets and nothing from the coaching staff?
I've mentioned before that Frank Broyles always believed you got to avoid crickets. What does that mean? It means when the team's got a problem, when the fans are all buzzing and they know there's a problem, if you get nothing out of the Broyles Center, nothing from the head coach, nothing from the athletic director, nothing from anybody, it's just business as usual, they don't know what they're doing over there. So he always believed you had to do something to make the fans believe, hey, we do have a plan here. The only way so far in this week that crickets have been avoided is with that whole Petrino thing, because Marcelo comes out and says this. He says he's got sources that say that Petrino's been working the phones behind the scenes, trying to get people on his side. Let me take over during the open date week. Frank Fletcher is the biggest booster supporter of Petrino. So the only other way you avoid crickets on that, because let's just be honest, if that's not addressed, what kind of look is that this week? People are going, oh.
We thought the Hunter Yurchek stuff was bad.
Maybe you've got the offensive coordinator sitting there trying to get the job and not doing his job. So that had to be addressed. There's only two ways to do it. Petrino could have done it himself, probably through some sort of a release. He doesn't. Assistant coaches don't talk, during a season like this. But he could have put out a press release. But this was probably a better way to do it because most people know that Frank Fletcher is a big booster, supporter. They're very close. So he comes out and says this is false. He's not calling anybody. He supports Sam Pittman, and the only thing on his mind is helping this team beat Notre Dame. So kudos to Frank Fletcher. At least he avoided the crickets. Yeah. But we've got crickets on everything else. We're just sitting here wondering what's going to happen. If they lose, is all that stuff with Petrino true? Is Sam Pittman going to make a waiting until next week to make some sort of change in the defensive staff? I don't know. It's crickets other than that.
I think the defensive side is where you have to look at all of this, right? And where are the core problems? Your offense is putting up 30-plus points every game, so clearly Bobby Petrino's offense is not the problem. Now, there are some problems in the offense. You cannot get stagnant in second halves. We saw it really against Ole Miss, even though no one really wants to talk about it, because a lot of that time, a lot of those points were garbage time points, essentially. And can Arkansas get back into that game against the Rebels? Ultimately, they were able to, gave themselves a chance to win, and you see that all the time at the NFL level. I mean, if you're a Chicago Bears fan like I am, we saw that all the time last year. But then you look at this Memphis game, and it's the Razorbacks' ability to only put up 3 points on the board. Now, you had Taylor Green took a really bad sack in the third quarter that knocked them out of field goal range, and Scott Starzik didn't get the opportunity at the end of the game. What needs to change from this offense in the second half? What has to be the difference so that they can keep the momentum? Because clearly they get some great momentum out of the gates and just can't keep it and kind of just start to fall off.
We have to have a better running game because the running game hasn't been that good in the second half. And then, again, as I said, Taylor Green's got to have more time to throw the ball. What's interesting, though, is in both of those games, Ole Miss and Memphis, even though they'd struggled in the second half to move the ball, what did they do when they had to move the ball? In the Memphis game, they went right down the field and were right there at the edge of the red zone with about a little over a minute, maybe a minute 40 left. So they were trying to burn out the clock. They're in a real position to win that game. So they moved the ball then when they needed it. Again, against Memphis, 1 field goal up to that point.
Right.
But they go right down the field very methodically, run their offense. Honestly, what that suggests to me is they were messing around. And then suddenly it dawned on them, oh, wait, we're going to lose this game if we don't move the ball now. And then they did it. I still think somebody's not getting through to these guys.
On the defensive side.
Either side.
Yeah.
Offense, defense. I think part of the problem right now with the offense is I understand why Petrino's up in that booth. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. When it happened, I explained I thought he trusted Taylor Green so much that he didn't have to be down there in his face. But now maybe he does need to be down there to motivate the offense. But you give something up in terms of play calling when you do that.
What's interesting to me when you talk about motivation on the team, right? It's something that Taylor Green isn't the most energetic guy. He's very calm, very cool, very collective, and that is great to have in some fourth quarter situations. But when your quarterback after the game is saying, I need to step up and I need to be the one to motivate these guys and to get everyone's energy up, is that not concerning that this guy's a second-year quarterback? And again, for as good as Taylor Green is, and he is a great person, we've had the chance to talk to him a lot of times. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but wouldn't you know as a quarterback, as a veteran quarterback, that you need to bring the energy at times in certain games?
Yeah, I do think he does a good job of talking about taking responsibility. But here's the problem. You can tell from being around this guy, he's not a rah-rah. He's not somebody, so he's going to have to be a guy that leads by example.
Yeah.
And when he's not performing, when he's the guy that gets sacked, when he throws the 2 interceptions, then all of a sudden, how do you rah-rah everybody? It's more difficult. So, again, I think part of the issue is you need Petrino. Here's what a guy told me about a Razorback player, and I'm not going to identify him, but he told me about, this is what he said about Petrino. He said, I don't like him. I wouldn't spend 5 seconds around him away from football, but he's made me a better player. And I said, well, how did he make you a better player? And he said, the things he said to me when he got in my face made me so mad that the whole time I was out there, I was out to prove him wrong. And it worked. Okay, maybe you need him back down there to do that. Maybe that's part of what's wrong with this football team is they need somebody down there telling me, hey, you're taking time off. You're tiptoeing through the tulips down here. I'm not putting up with that anymore. I'll stick you on the bench. Whatever you have to tell somebody.
Absolutely. Again, I think always it's great that coaches sometimes have to become the enemy of the players so that they all bond, they come together. Mike, before we go to a break, let's talk about Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love is a spectacular running back. They've got a great defense. Where is Arkansas going to have success on the field against the Fighting Irish and Marcus Freeman's team if they want to come out with a win?
Well, they need to run some, but that's the strength of Notre Dame's defense. It's hard to run on those guys. So you've definitely got to be able to throw it because that's where their weakness is. That's their one weakness. They just don't have a good pass defense. And keep in mind, they're still 1-2, and they still the Miami game. I think they should have won. Yeah. So they are beatable. You just can't lay down on defense and put your offense in the kind of hole that they've been in, where if you don't keep scoring every time you get the ball, all of a sudden you get in the hole, and that could happen in this game. We don't know whether that defense is going to bounce back, and it could be 2 factors here. At home, maybe they play better at home. They certainly did in the first 2 games, even though the competition, I still say that Arkansas State is as good as Memphis. I think they are. But let's say it was not quite the opposition of the last 2 games, but still, you played better at home, even though one of those games wasn't a true home game. It was sort of a home game. And then the other factor is maybe it won't be as hot, so maybe they don't run out of gas. Yeah. Because the one thing they did in the Memphis game defensively is they got better as the game wore on. I'm sorry, in the Ole Miss game. In the Memphis game, they went backwards as the game wore on. You can't have that against Notre Dame.
Right, and against Memphis, again, the Julian Neal pass interference goes against Arkansas, even though it probably should have been OPI. Right. And then things kind of just fall out from there. You've got to keep your head. Yeah.
It sounds like an excuse, but I have to do both sides of this. There's no question that Memphis benefited from the American Football Conference, whatever that thing is, AA, whatever. That they benefited from having their own refs. It was really lopsided, and there were some pass interference calls like that one that should have gone the other way. There were some holding calls on Arkansas that weren't holding.
Omega Blake.
Yes, and I'm talking the offensive lineman got called for holding. Yeah. When they didn't hold, they'd show it on the replay, and the color analyst was going, "I didn't look like holding to me." So they got the shaft. Yeah. But that happens on the road. You have to overcome it. So maybe you don't have that in this game. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked to see if it's Big Ten refs there or SEC.
I'd assume it's SEC.
If it is, then you got some help there.
Exactly. Help. The Razorbacks need plenty of it. Well, when we come back, we're talking more football, but this time we're talking the 2026 through 2029 schedule that all just dropped last night. We'll break that all down when PTN Extra returns after this. Welcome back to PTN Extra. Evan Kamiko, Mike Irwin hanging out with you on this Wednesday like we always do. Mike, we got some big news last night. The schedule for Arkansas football from 2026 to 2029 is officially out. For everybody at home, a few changes if you haven't caught up with us lately. The SEC is now implementing 9 conference games. That was very big. We take a look at Arkansas' schedule for the next couple of years. 2026 and 2027 is really what you want to focus on. 2028 and 2029, those schedules, the home and away teams just flip. So we look at 2026. The 3 permanent rivals for the next 4 years for Arkansas will be LSU. They're keeping the battle for the boot. Missouri, they're keeping the battle line rivalry. And Texas, they keep that old Southwest rivalry going as well. And in 2026, Arkansas, you've got home games against Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Then they hit the road to go to Auburn. They go to Kyle Field and A&M, and a trip to Nashville to face Vanderbilt. 2027, again, it's those same 3 rival teams, just flipped locations. So LSU and Mizzou are on the road. Texas is at home. Then you've got home against Alabama, Kentucky, and Ole Miss, and at Florida, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. Mike, your initial thoughts on this schedule right here?
Well, as far as the permanent opponents, that was no surprise. That's probably what everyone expected. If you're trying to get a break, maybe if you put Mississippi State in there, I don't know, you could pick somebody out. Because all 3 of those teams, Missouri, Texas, and LSU, their programs are very good right now. But to be honest, what difference does it make unless this program gets turned around? You could work that schedule any way you wanted to, and they're still going to look like they're not favored in almost every one of those games. I mean, Vanderbilt's playing a lot better now, so that doesn't look like a sure win. Even somebody mentioned South Carolina. South Carolina almost beat Missouri at Missouri. They're not bad at all. Arkansas is really, really struggling right now, and I don't know what's going to happen, but they have to figure out what's wrong. The coaching staff's got to get these players motivated, but somebody's got to come in with some money and get better players into this program.
And there is no more, we don't have to play Georgia and Alabama, because the last couple of years we have not seen those 2 teams. The last time they played one of those teams was in Tuscaloosa back in 2023. That was 2 years ago. Next year, you have the Bulldogs, who are coming to Fayetteville, which should be a very interesting matchup. But I think you're right? You look at this Arkansas schedule, and you knew that the Razorbacks were going to get screwed, right? Like, you knew their annual opponents. It didn't matter because all 3 of those programs that we thought, and you could have said, well, maybe they throw Ole Miss in there. Well, Ole Miss has had their number the last couple of years.
Right.
Maybe they throw A&M in there. Kind of the same case. You could have made an argument for South Carolina, who Arkansas really hasn't seen much of the last couple of years. But still, South Carolina, to your point, and Shane Beamer's got a better squad than what they have here. Arkansas is the cupcake game on the schedule right now. And that is the sad reality of where we are. And we shouldn't be saying this because this team could very easily be 4-0. And if they were 4-0, maybe we'd be having a completely different discussion. But the fact of the matter is these same mistakes the last couple of years are why teams look and say, well, we wanted Arkansas as our permanent rival. You think Lane Kiffin doesn't want to see Arkansas every year?
Yeah, he's probably mad about that. And obviously, I believe Missouri, Texas, I mean, Eli Drinkwitz he's got to be clapping. He wanted to keep playing Arkansas.
Yeah.
So, again, unless they can work some magic and turn this season around, what I'm saying is you start losing the rest of these games or almost all you end up with 3 wins this season, 2 wins, 3 wins, even 4 wins. All of a sudden next year, where are you? How do you get another coach to come in here in that situation? Again, when you take a job, if you're on the rise as a young coach and you've got options, you look at the SEC and you look at Arkansas and you say, ooh, first of all, that league's brutal. Secondly, that school apparently has no money to buy players. That looks like if I took that job, a one-way ticket to go backwards. So, yeah, I might get a big buyout, but also might be out of coaching after a few years. So I just think if that's what they do and they have to go out and find another coach at the end of this year, I think they're going to get turned down just like they did the last time when they were out, when the athletic director was looking around.
And need I remind you, too, you've got to go on the road next year to Utah. Right? That's not an easy game either.
No,
I mean, Utah's the top 25 team in the country right now. So it's an uphill battle that you have to fight. Asking you a question right now. Which of those teams that we maybe haven't seen in a while, right? Take away LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri, because we've seen them last year. You're seeing them again this year. What team that Arkansas hasn't played lately are you most looking forward to?
I just looking at any of them. I mean, Vanderbilt? You going to say that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we might win that game. I don't know that you win that game. Seems like to me they need to play Florida more.
So there was good things that happened the last time they played against Florida.
Yeah, so I never thought I would say that. Again, I don't think South Carolina's necessarily a Kentucky. You play Kentucky, Kentucky's looks like, I don't know, they're up and down. They're very similar to Arkansas right now. I think they need more money, and there was word that came out of Kentucky that they were going to spend most of their revenue sharing money on basketball, which I wouldn't hate to be in that situation if I'm their head football coach, but maybe that's a program that's down there with Arkansas, but there aren't too many that are down there near the bottom with the Razorbacks.
It's tough because as a fan, you love it because you're like, oh, well, I haven't been to South Carolina in forever. I get to go to South Carolina in the next couple of years. I get to go to Nashville next year for a football weekend. And then you remember the actual football team has to play. And to your point, it's who knows what the state of the team is going to be. Is it going to be, is this in Indiana, right, where a coach comes in and completely changes the face of the program? Or are you going to have to go through a whole other rebuild and you're back at square one, you're the bottom feeder of the SEC still, and you haven't made any progress?
Here's the two ways you can make a big jump forward. You can go do in football what you did in basketball. You can find some guy that's a proven winner that's been out of school for a long time and he's burnt out on that school. And don't tell me Dabo, because Dabo's going downhill fast. Don't tell me Mike Gundy, because he had a great record for a long time, but he's gone downhill. So there's got to be somebody other than that. That's a way to do it. And the other way is to go find a diamond in the rough guy that everybody's been overlooking, like Indiana did, and go, wow, I can't believe nobody noticed that they should have hired this guy, because I remember when he was hired and people going, oh, man, he's winning at a low level. He's going to run into something in the Big Ten he's not ready for. And he was ready for it.
Yeah.
So that happens every once in a while, but those are the two ways you can improve a program quickly.
Yeah, in Arkansas, you're going to need it. I mean, who knows what you're going to look for. Now, a lot of time is left in the season. The Razorbacks are only 2-2, so as much as we're panicking, as much as the fan base at home wants to panic, there's a lot of season left. Either is it going to be a good thing or a bad thing? We'll let you know. Let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe on our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and 479 First. Thank you for always tuning in and hanging out with us on this Wednesday. For Mike Irwin, I'm Evan Camico saying so long on PTN Extra. We'll see you back here next week.